It's no surprise Clair Obscur just won everything at the Game Awards, because this tour de force of a game fucking rules. First, getting the housekeeping out of the way, I ain't got no damn sponsor, and definitely nobody is sending my small ass channel a free copy of any games. Although my good friend did gift me this game because he was raving about it on release and that I needed to play it, and I'm just now getting around to play it, so sorry Seth for taking so long. Regarding spoilers, I'm also going to break the review into two broad sections. One section will contain my non-spoiler thoughts, going over broad strokes of the story, setting, and premise, as well as discussing the gameplay. Within will be some minor spoilers for locations you might visit, but I'm deliberately avoiding anything major. The second section will contain my spoiler thoughts and the conclusion. I'll be clearly labeling this portion so you can avoid it, and provide a timestamp to bypass the spoilers and go right to my spoiler-free conclusion. First, let's start with presentation. Your eyes do not deceive you. Clair Obscur is a very pretty game. While it isn't the level of, say, Cyberpunk 2077, the pinnacle of fidelity, it's no slouch either, carried by extremely strong art direction. Right from the intro, you're saturated with color, the red and white flowers celebrating those who homage each year, the architecture of fantasy France, and the stylish outfits. All of it speaks to a world of the late 19th, early 20th century, but interspersed are other fantastical elements. What's the deal with these strange statues? Like, who is this SKA character? Are those glowing magical zip lines? Why does my guy have a mechanical arm? And why isn't everybody smoking? This is clearly not ordinary France. This is made even more clear when you look up and see the twisted, almost melted Eiffel Tower, which looks like it was caught in a blowtorch and then frozen in time as it melted. The world is dripping with atmosphere, and the intro especially starts you off experiencing the haunting feeling that something's wrong. Everyone is morose regarding the gommage, though you, the player, don't know exactly what that means. Gommage being the French word for erasure, or to be erased, by the way. But whatever it means, for those so afflicted, you get the idea it is the end of their journey. One thing about the visuals that did bother me at first was how grainy the game appeared, as if heavy film grain was layered over the whole thing, even with post-processing off and without using DLSS. I worried this would bother me the entire game, but after the first few hours, it faded into the background and caused me no more issues, my eyes filtering it all out. Throughout the game, you'll find the canvases of the world are painted with dramatic lighting, where creative vistas of color and massive skyboxes take center stage. Moody suns set over desolate battlefields, haunting and storm-racked darkness lays upon ominous towers, and otherworldly, painterly vistas swirl with color. I'm continuously amazed at how many distinct locations and aesthetics the team at Sandfall Interactive have cooked up for the game. There's one specific type of location you'll visit all around the world where you only visit to soak up the ambiance of a place. At these locations, only one item is found, a music record to play at your camp, and it only exists to let you soak up another fabulous vista cooked up by the artists at Sandfall, where a static camera sits in place over what they've crafted. Character models are also quite good, and while lip sync often misses the mark, you'll never miss out on what a character is feeling, as their expressive faces manage to convey what the writers intended. You'll be mesmerized by Lune's strangely bare feet as you watch her hover around hypnotically, or be stun-locked by SKA's dazzling dance moves.
Oh, fuck the mission! Fuck the mission, Lune! What are we gonna do, huh? Tell me. What are we gonna do? We're gonna take down the paintress, just the three of us? My gun and your sparks?
I didn't take you for a coward.
I'm not a coward.
You swore the oath. When one falls, we continue.
Yes, I know.
When one falls. When one falls. Not if. When.
Perhaps most importantly, though, is that in the midst of battle, visual clarity rarely suffers, even under a barrage of particle effects. Occasionally, during some of the most intense battles and skills, you might lose track of exactly what is happening in a fight due to how many things might be blasting across the screen at once, or an opponent's attacks might become a blur you have to learn to unpick. This is never more true than when fighting some of the game's super bosses, which beat my ass left, right, and all the way to Sunday. I would add, though, that this is from the perspective of a seasoned gamer. I'm used to being roughed up in an alley by intense visuals. My girlfriend, new to gaming, found this all much more disorienting when we were playing, so your mileage may vary. A fun note on the visuals, but my girlfriend and I both found the many outfits your characters could acquire to be delightful. We spent more time than I will admit here, ensuring our team's outfits coordinated and looked good, and it is little touches like this that show how much love went into making this game. Performance can be a bit choppy, even on my monster PC. There are sections of the game where substantial frame dips will occur in especially lighting-heavy areas of the game. I'm not the channel to break this down in detail though. I recommend you watch Digital Foundry if you want to hear from the real experts, and none of the performance drops were enough to affect my overall enjoyment of the game. Another aspect of the presentation of Clair Obscur is the insanely great audio, especially the music and voice acting. Music in Clair Obscur is omnipresent, and the work of first-time composer Lorien Testard is blowing people away across the internet for a reason. The OST is shockingly gargantuan, consisting of 154 tracks. The sheer quantity of high-quality music produced for this game is apparent all across the runtime. Seemingly every character gets their own theme song, and most locations do as well, from the now iconic songs like Lumiere and Alicia to the imposing Renoir track. But then there are songs that seem to come out of absolutely nowhere and be completely different to what the rest of the game sounds like the funky and electronic Rain from the Ground you first hear during the Goblu fight,
Lightning strike.
or the groovy jazz explosion of Monoko. One small gripe with the audio I had, which seemed to be an issue exclusively in the opening, was that the audio levels just came completely off the rails at the end of the prologue, when the gommage kicks in and the music swells. This is what the waveform looks like in DaVinci Resolve for this audio, which I changed nothing about. It looks like the audio version of a scream. This never seemed to happen again, but I had to crank the volume down when it did, as my speakers were peaking and causing my eardrums to gommage. But it isn't just the music that shines in the audio department, the voice acting is also top-notch. From new stars in the voice acting scene, like Jennifer English, to well-trodden talent like Ben Starr, everyone is putting in AAA performances. And hold on a minute. I didn't know until researching for this review that Andy fucking Serkis voices Renoir. How did this go under my radar? The king just can't miss, and he always surprises me with the places he pops up.
This won't make sense to you now. But we both want what's best for our families. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle, but I did try to warn you.
Though my favorite voice performances went to two characters in particular. The first is your favorite character and mine, SKA, voiced in the most peculiar and charming accent I've ever heard by Maxence Cazorla.
Bonjour, mes amis.
Hey, bonjour mon ami. CL? Odd, I don't know. He seems nice.
SKA forms the shining and beautiful heart of the game. Being a giant ball of love and happiness, he was tailor-made to lift everyone's spirits by being a huge, adorable godchild. He's there for everyone at their lowest points, and manages to be relentlessly funny too. The other show stealer is CL, voiced by Shala Nix, who forms an indefatigable force within the party. She's the eye of a hurricane throughout the journey, who has a deep peace within her from her past experiences, which I found to be the most tragic in the entire game. When you finally get to hear her open up about her past, it's a scene where I believe the strongest, most emotional voice acting performance of the whole game is delivered. I also want to draw extra attention to the audio in combat. From punchy, bassy counterattack explosions to flashy, in-your-face attacks, the soundscape is quite rich.
Not looking good.
Most important though, I think, is the audio cues for parrying and dodging. Every attack in the game I can recall has audio cues assigned to it, such that it can be more useful for parrying using the audio than it is using the visuals. It wouldn't surprise me if someone who is blind could complete this game flawlessly, parrying all the attacks with enough practice, which is a sign of a great audio feature and deserves kudos for accessibility as well. The visuals are lovely and the audio is sterling, but none of that would mean anything if the story was a mess. Let's be real though, you wouldn't be hearing about this game as anything but a tragedy if Sandfall hadn't delivered one of the most meaningful and impactful stories of the year. Reiterating, I'm not spoiling anything but the premise of the game in this section. The premise of Clair Obscur is thus. Set in a better world, where France seems to have been mostly destroyed, a giant lady, known as the Paintress, paints a number on a giant piece of rock in the far distance. Each year the number decreases, from 100 down to the current number of 33, and anyone that age gommages, painlessly turning to dust and flower petals as they fade away. Every year on the day after the gommage, a new expedition is launched to try and stop the Paintress from painting death upon the world. and every year, she continues to paint, the previous expedition evidently having failed. You then control a small cast of characters as they set out on the eponymous Expedition 33, aiming to stop the Paintress as all those who have come before have, or to prepare the way for those who come after. From there you enter a fantastical world of myths and legends, laughter and despair. Inhuman monsters known as Nevrons stalk the lands of the continent, and they take a vast number of odd shapes and forms as they attempt to destroy your expedition. But the Nevrons are not alone, and not everything on the continent is inherently hostile. Almost from the beginning of the game, the mystery deepens as you are attacked by a strange man on the beach you arrive on. A man who is, impossibly, old, even though the Gomage should have Thanos snapped him away. And for some reason, the hostile Nevrons are fighting alongside the man to kill your expedition, their power far beyond what any of the expedition can contest. You'll meet a cast of strange characters, like the beloved Esquier, who will seek to help or hinder you in your journey to find out who the Paintress is, why she does what she does, and try to save the future of Lumiere. The plot twists and turns in ways that will completely take you off guard, bold decisions that defy your predictions, and change the narrative in ways I think anyone would be hard-pressed to have figured out. One moment in particular at the end of Act 1 completely floored my girlfriend and I'm excited for everyone to experience that without spoilers. Beyond the narrative are the themes of Clair Obscur. The whole game is an exploration of grief and loss, of art and passion, of family, both found and immediate. Your lenses into this world come in the form of your two main characters. The first is Gustave, a kind man and a genius inventor who has created a piece of tech known as a Lumina converter, driven to stop the Gomage from taking anyone else. Gustave is racked by pain for those they've lost, and will do whatever it takes to defeat the Paintress, even if he might be hot-headed and incautious in his approach.
For those who come after.
Your other lens is Maëlle, a teenager who is orphaned at a young age by the Gomage, who views Gustave as both brother and father, and has nothing chaining her to Lumiere, so chooses to join the expedition. Maëlle radiates sadness, yet her playful banter with Gustave and the rest of the party lifts all their spirits, and you can tell there's a deep love between the two. The whole game circles around your two protagonists, Maëlle even more so than Gustave, and their revelations and reactions to the truth of the world are thoughtfully portrayed by their amazing voice talents. To say much more would be to enter spoiler territory, so I will simply say that Expedition 33 goes places I've never seen before in a video game, on the value of art to the artist and pouring yourself into creation. And it goes to new explorations of ideas well trodden, on grief, death, and loss, and what that does to people, how they manage to recover and be lifted by those around them, or how they sink into those feelings unable to be saved. The gameplay of Expedition 33 is a unique hybrid of systems. A pastiche of the JRPG, with turn-based combat order decided by a character's speed stat, and the Souls-like, with a heavy focus on parry or dodge timing. There are even elements of rhythm games to be found in the fights, parries having an almost musical quality to them I found easier to deal with when I thought of them as a small piece of a song. While calling it the Dark Souls of JRPGs is certainly cliche, though in much of the design of this game, the influence is evident, like the expedition flags as bonfires you rest at to respawn non-boss enemies, I think it is also apt. Like most JRPGs, the 3 characters you can have in your party at a time are able to act in an order according to their speed. The speed stat, influenced by agility and the stats on your Pictos, also affects how often you can play, giving you additional turns in combat if your stats are high enough. Agility is only one of the 5 attributes you can adjust and put points into as you gain experience from killing Nevrons, all of which have varying effects and scaling linked to your equipped weapon that tie into how you build a character. Might influences your raw damage, while Vitality increases your max health. Luck adjusts your critical hit chance, and Defense makes you take less damage. There isn't anything revolutionary here, but it is a system that is well executed and easy enough to understand. From there, you can use skills or attack like anyone familiar with Final Fantasy could attest, with the ability to use a gun or other ranged attack like you might in Persona, to target weak points on enemies or take down annoying flying enemies that dodge ordinary attacks. You'll also unlock ever-increasing number of tints, which act as healing items or revives. That being said, I never used any of the tints that gave AP to my team members, and only rarely used the healing, though this might be me going nuts to butts on "parry this you filthy casual" and paying for it with my characters dying. What did form an enjoyable gameplay loop is each character having their own combat mechanics inside the larger framework of the game. These sorts of minigames provided a bit of a learning curve to remember how each character needed to work, which was overwhelming to my girlfriend in the beginning, but helped to keep the gameplay exciting. Mael, for example, is focused on stances, where each of her skills switches you to another stance, each stance having specific bonuses, such as taking reduced damage or dealing double damage, and juggling those stances to optimize your damage is part of the challenge of using her correctly. Another core to the game's combat are Pictos and Lumina. Pictos are items you find around the game that act like buffs, or equipment in a typical JRPG. Each provides a unique ability, as well as buffs to the stats of the character. Each character has 3 slots for Pictos, so you might have Mael equip the Pictos that gives her 50% more damage when her health is below 10%, and then try to build her around always staying at low health to risk it all on parries. After 4 separate combats with the Pictos, it gets added to your Lumina store. Lumina are the passive version of Pictos that do not provide the stat buffs, but allow a character to add as many of the passive buffs as they can buy with their pool of Lumina points. In the early game, the build variety is limited, as you would expect while you learn their mechanics. By the end of the game, you have enough Pictos and Lumina to easily build each character in half a dozen ways, and build crafters are certain to have a blast with the variety in the game. Combine all this with weapons that each have 3 unique effects they unlock at different level thresholds that you can rank up with materials you find exploring, and you end up with a very robust combat and build system. And you'll need every drop of this system to take on some of the hardest enemies in the game. Your basic Nevron foot soldiers are no challenge to deal with, and while their attacks might seem overwhelming at first due to getting a handle on the game, soon after you'll be wading through armies of them, wishing for more challenge as you pop their weak points. Soon though, you'll be facing bosses that really test your skills, several of which might be walls you plow into and are forced to take time to learn, especially if you're fighting some of the world bosses scattered around, meant to be fought in the endgame. Not only do these bosses have huge pools of health and vicious, escalating hit combos, but they often also have their own mechanics to contend with, like draining your AP, or following a specific move order. And then, after late in the game you manage to overcome these optional hurdles and you feel unstoppable, you run into the real super bosses. Enemies secreted away in dark corners of the map, or within some of the new locations added by DLC, they will completely bully you into not even bothering to fight them. One unfortunate factor of this is that, due to lacking level scaling or an indicator of when you should fight the last boss, or if you can continue in the world after defeating them, it is very easy to come into the final fight vastly overleveled. I one-shot the last several bosses, which really undercut the epic presentation given to it, and reduced my ability to enjoy the spectacles they surely had in mind for me. I would recommend that you go fight them as soon as you're able to for this reason. Alright, here's the spoiler section. You know the drill, get out of here if you don't want me to spoil the whole game. If YouTube added my timestamps correctly, you can use the chapters to go to the conclusion, or use the timestamp on screen. I will be spoiling everything, you have been warned. Man, looking back, I guess so damn wrong in the plot of Expedition 33. Right after we landed on the beach and got butchered, I was cooking up all sorts of ideas on the plot. Is Expedition 0 a bunch of time-traveling versions of us from the future in some sort of bootstrap paradox shit? Renoir, he looks suspiciously like Gustave. Is he an older version of me, saving us from stopping the Paintress? Why does Goblu like the flower of Sophie's? Are Nevrons like human souls or something? Or Gestrels are maybe the souls of innocence or children? And so Goblu is maybe Sophie? Is the Paintress actually good? Hence Sophie sympathizing with her? Okay, I was actually pretty on point with that one. Sandfall did an expert job at keeping me on my toes, and as they revealed secrets, some of which I started to unpick as they laid the breadcrumbs for me, they were always one step ahead of me. All my guesses gommaged the fuck out of there as things were revealed. A family of artistes, waging some sort of creative-driven war between painters and writers? Are there others in play then, like musicians with a capital M? Did painted Verso, as a representation of real Verso, mean his mother thought he wanted to switch sides to them or something? The whole world is a lie, a magical painting where artists get to play God. What a wild twist that had my head spinning. And Gustave biting the bullet hurt. It was such a bold choice, because we had the perfect amount of time with him that I never saw his fate coming so soon. Usually if someone is killing off the fake protagonist, they do it much earlier in the story, so Sandfall took a great restraint in holding off until the end of Act 1. And the way that you have nodes on his skill tree that never open up, or that he had an entire mechanic that went with him, and the way they never forgot about Gustave, that his life and death, painted as it was, meant so much to the expedition that they always kept referencing him. This was a source of warmth and light in Expedition 33.
Who come after. Right?
And this was a light we needed at times, because there's some dark subject matter in the game. From Gustav about to decommission himself in the opening, to Ciel's masterful unveiling of when she attempted to drown herself. As the full story unrolls itself, and you find out about the best character, SKA, was the one who saved her, I was completely choked up and happy we had such a big ball of love on our side. Almost as relieved as Ciel seemed to be.
I heard your tears.
From so far away?
I heard you, so I came.
I see. Thank you.
Tears again. You sure do like to cry.
Speaking of characters, I was distrustful of Verso at first. It seemed like he was trying to replace Gustav, freshly dead, and the rest of the expedition, and, I suspect, the player base was on board with me. But I was always thinking, if he was truly a villain, why not let us die? Unless, of course, he has ulterior motives for us. Well, it turns out that he does, but not in the same way we might have feared. It also turns out he's not simply a villain or a hero, but a man haunted by his past and a century of death. A man with knowledge of the truth of the world they live in, and that it's a lie, nothing more than a simulation of reality, and that he's the shadow of a dead man. When we finally reach the monolith and confront the Patress, I have to remark that the fight is really excellent. I suspect the final fight with Renoir is the match of it at least, though unfortunately, as I said earlier in the review, I was much too powerful to appreciate it. And as the Patress was lying on the ground waiting to be killed, I couldn't help but feel I was making a decision, that I was about to regret slaying her. It turns out this is sort of true, and that things are far more complicated than I first imagined, even if letting her continue to play would change nothing. And holy shit, those endings. My thoughts through most of the game were switched around heavily in the final portion of the game by the additional context we found, where, through most of the game, there's a theme of found family, that the companionship you form with the expeditioners is more real than a family you didn't choose, that, maybe, if you all persevere, Verso and Mael and the crew can defeat the selfish Renoir and the Paintress, freeing the world to continue on naturally. That the true family of Verso and Alicia are cruel bastards, but that even though Lumiere and the world is not real in the same way, they're real enough to be worth preserving. All of this changed in the final 15 minutes of the game, and it is uncomfortable and thoughtful like great art can be. I understand that there's a lot of discourse around the ending, but my girlfriend and I strangely found the final choice effortless to make. A rarity, because I often agonize over final choices. But the truth of the matter and the personalities of all involved were so clear, the choice seemed simple. It's our opinion that Verso was completely right, and by extension, Renoir was totally correct all along, a massive subversion to us. That despite all the love poured in by artists into their art, and using art as a method of escape, that this was not healthy. That Mael would, as Verso says, not leave the canvas and slowly die within it, trapping herself in a lie, a fantasy world where she's God and can be in denial without anyone to countermand her. We both agreed this was wrong, that to live in a puppet world, to bring the dead back in mimicry of life, to live a lie and force the people to become puppets dancing on your strings, this was just wrong. What really pushed us over the edge was the sad little boy that was Verso's soul, trapped in torment for the sake of his sister, painting and painting to keep a world alive for her. That he clearly wanted to stop. The painted Verso wanted this to end, sold that this was wrong. And so we sided with Verso, one-shot Mael, who poetically was the first and last fight of the game, and brought the canvas to an end. But like all the best endings, it is a bittersweet one. Saying goodbye to Verso, to SK and Minoka, to the entirety of the world hurt to see. The calm acceptance of Ciel, the anger in Lune's eyes. But it was bound to end anyways, and better to die free than live on as Mael's puppets. It's no coincidence, A Life to Love is the name of that ending, compared to A Life to Paint. After the end though, we were unsure if we'd chosen correctly. We wanted to make sure. Maybe Mael does end up leaving the canvas of her own volition, but leaves it intact? So we looked up the other ending online. We just had to know. Almost immediately we felt vindicated, seeing the old Verso forced to play for Mael's delusion, unable to even honestly enjoy his passion for music. A Lumiere seemingly empty of life save for those at the concert, as if anything outside of Mael's desires are irrelevant to her fantasy. And a horror movie-esque transition to her being overwhelmed by the painting, unable to escape her fantasy, and coming closer to death, sold it at the last. This is clearly not being portrayed as the correct decision here, even by the devs. As far as the endgame combat goes, some of the bosses were absolutely beating my ass when fighting them, and I know I would need to dedicate some serious time to either learn all of their moves to beat them, or heavily rework my builds to try and one-shot them. After this review, I'm probably going to spend some time learning them, optimizing my builds beyond what the base game required, and then conquer the last hurdles within it. You all know Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a masterpiece. You don't need me to tell you that. And now that I've finally caught up to the rest of you, I'm here to march in lockstep in the Legion supporting whatever Sandfall does next. Word on the street has it, they're going to be releasing more games in the Clair Obscur universe. Games I will eagerly be awaiting if they can match this same high bar. An incredible music score, beautiful and diverse visual landscapes, a compelling and detailed combat system, a striking cast of characters, and a thought piece on the value of art and grief. I can't recommend Expedition 33 enough.
Tomorrow comes. Thanks to you. Expedition 33.
Hey, so this is the outro section. I got some great feedback on putting something here beyond the black screen and music, so I'm trying it out. Feel free to subscribe, comment, all that YouTube shit if you're interested in my reviews. If I had a real Patreon or a bunch of subscribers and questions, I'm sure I'd put them here. We have Mandalore Gaming at home. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you next time, I hope.